Team, would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kate is not going to be here this evening. She emailed me. Appointment of alternates. Tony, in case we need a vote, did you want to be an alternate for this evening? Okay, so we'll appoint you as an alternate. Roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Stephen Weber, Selectman's Rep.
Dennis Page, member.
Kimberly Queen and Vice Chair.
Tony Turecki, alternate.
Okay. First order of business, public input on non-agenda items. Are there any public input on any non-agenda items on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, I will close the public input on non-agenda items and go to the business at hand. First thing this evening, Mel's Funway Park, application Wayne Caulfield, Michael Agamando, and Joan M. DeRocher, 448, 450, 454, and 460 Charles Bancroft Highway. Application for lot line adjustment between lot 7 and 17, tax map 20, then a consolidation of lot 17 with lot 15, 19, and 21-1. A non-residential site plan to depict the removal of the existing driving range and layout of a proposed bumper boat pool and several kiddie attractions. Further amend the site plan approved June 6, 2017 to allow permanent enclosure of the 3 pavilions and amend the site plan approval February 17, 2015 to allow a permanent fence to screen a portion of the hayride pathway. This application, the applicant, I guess, is requesting a continuance, and I see Attorney Perlman here for the applicant, so Attorney Perlman, do you want to come forward?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Andy Perlman, Attorney Perlman for your applicant. We are requesting a continuance to your next hearing. I have a meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at Keach Nordstrom. We're going to go over our plans one final time and get them in. We are depicting the haunted hayride. We're going to be showing the 2 buildings out there, along with the building permits that we got for the haunted hayride. So we have some plan, kind of finish up, polishing, and getting it in. Wasn't ready for this meeting, following the site walk, but we'll have it in this week, so we'll be good to go. I believe on the 8th, but I thought I heard you talking about maybe not the 8th. Is that just the meeting room?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I don't know. There seems to be an issue with the.
If you look at our litchfieldnh.gov website, the planning board meets on the 1st and the 15th.
Right.
The 8th
I'm not
is-
meeting the 1st.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be here.
I don't know if anything was published by John or anything yet. So.
No.
Okay, so it's 15th, I think. I don't know if we could do the 8th because this room is booked with the Recreation Committee and the Heritage Commission is in the other one as well.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know what the protocol is in the town to
Well,
have a different
I mean-
day, or if we are allowed to do that.
Well, we're just asking for your next available agenda.
Next available.
So whatever that is.
Well, obviously we meet the 1st and 3rd, so I mean, what's this? The 15th? Of course, I keep looking at that map. Is that?
Yeah.
That's not going to help me. I believe it is
What is that? What's the next? We would,
It'd be the 15th.
15th. So it'll be the
It'll be
15th of
Okay.
January.
Yep.
So we can do that. That works. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay. We can certainly, the thing is open to public input. I don't have not everybody's here, but what do you think, Jay? Should we defer? Obviously.
If it's relative to the continuance.
Yeah, like I said, if it's relative to the continuance that they're requesting. Otherwise, okay. So certainly,
So, I guess, how long are we gonna continue this project? I mean, it's been 6 months, 7 months? I mean, can't there be a time limit where they gotta actually come in with a real plan that's right, we just keep getting a plan that's not right. And we keep continuing. And then we continue again, and we continue again. I mean, at some point, you guys, to me, it seems like you need to make sure they have a right plan. I mean, who knows if the plan that's coming in is right again? I mean, I think it needs to go through the whole process. The engineer needs to look at it. He needs time to be able to look at it. If they're gonna go look at the plan tomorrow, they're gonna submit it, they're gonna come here. Luke Karen doesn't have any time to review it or go out there. It's time to close the case and start over again. I mean, this is just dragging on. I've never seen the planning board drag on a plan for 6 or 7 months, and the plan's never been right. I mean, it's never been right once yet. So who knows, how is it gonna be right again? So we continue it again, and we all get ready and we come, and it's not ready, or there's problems with it. And it's been that way through the whole thing. There's a whole bunch of problems out there. You guys saw the problems out there. You know, we need to take a step back, let them come in with a real plan, let it get reviewed by the engineer, let Jay and everybody have time to review it instead of saying we're gonna be here in 2 weeks, because who knows if it's right. So I think it's time to let them give a real plan. That's correct. And then move forward instead of keep piecing this and piece of this, piece of that, and we don't go nowhere. So I guess that's where I'm coming from as an abutter, and tired of coming to a meeting with about the right stuff, really the right stuff.
Okay, thank you. Well, certainly, I know that, well, we originally, when we started the process, we'd waive the 60-5-day clock, and we, pretty much allowed it to continue. But I think, since, obviously, it sounds as though you have something in the works. And do you think you're going to be able to have everything you need for this
Yes,
next meeting?
yes. We're going to be asking for conditional approval.
You're going to be asking for conditional approval. Okay. Jay, did you want to add anything?
I definitely sympathize with Mr. Charbonneau's concerns. It has gone on for a long time for a variety of reasons. And I appreciate that means, coming to multiple meetings. And that's, certainly a burden. At the same time, I do feel that, in fairness to the applicant, after the site walk, we indicated that, what we were looking to see was a revised plan that was reflective of all of the conditions that were out there. And that's granted. I think we thought it would be sooner, but I think it's most certainly worth and fair to allow the applicants to submit the plan that's been in the works since that time.
I've also met with the fire chief, and he has never even seen this plan. He's never even seen it, and he has concerns with the plan. I mean, that's what he told me, and you guys can check with him. But the fire chief doesn't know anything about this, and he has multiple concerns about things out there. So I think you guys need to invite the fire chief to the meeting or get him involved, because I'm not going to go into what his problems are, but he told me he has concerns. And I think, there's a whole bunch of issues that we just keep kicking this can down the road. And I don't think the plan's going out to everybody that it should go out to or being addressed.
Jay, can we get a copy to Chief Reitzel?
Absolutely.
This recently?
No, Ken, when the new one gets presented, we'll make sure that the chief gets a copy of it.
Notified you.
So that's why we need to start over. There's just a whole bunch of things like that. Here we go again. And now he doesn't have time to review it. And here we are, with the 11th hour, we're gonna get comments back instead of the full time frame that it takes for people to do their comments and give them time to do it.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Well, I think under the circumstances, considering that it seems as though you may have something of, for the next meeting. I can entertain a motion to continue this to the next meeting. That would be January 15th, 7 o'clock here. What's the will of the board?
Yeah, continue.
Continue.
I mean, if the meeting is on the 15th of January, that gives Luke here a month to look at stuff.
And you can get information to the fire
to look
chief
at that.
and
We'll make sure it gets to wherever it needs to go.
proper channels.
Don't forget, Lou has looked at the plans. It's not a lot of engineering
Yeah.
with these plans. It's more getting things on the plan. But we'll make sure Lou gets a copy of everything. We'll follow up with Jay to get it to the fire chief.
Oh, and make sure to get, if you can get it early
Oh,
to
yeah.
Jay.
Yeah, no.
obviously, that'll be
Plus the
helpful.
additional week is helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, okay. All right, so like I said, I would entertain a motion to continue this hearing on this site plan application to January 15th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion to continue this Mel's Funway until January, what is it? 15th.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? All those will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 5-0-0. Okay,
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
well,
Same
Merry
to you.
Christmas to everybody, and
We will.
I'm sending Frank a email right now, letting him know.
okay.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay. Moving forward, master plan update, transportation chapter. Jay, what do we have?
So just a couple things. I think what we're looking to do is kick off
This is the new
the
chapter.
next chapter. So I'm gonna walk around and give everybody just a little bit of paper. So just got a couple of
Thank
things here. Starting off with what I was hoping to do tonight is kind of really establish the parameters. What are the major issues? What are the major concerns? What are the things that we should be looking at or focusing on? And so I mentioned a couple of things that are already in the works, like the road surface management work that's happening right now. So I think that's something that's really good to incorporate in the chapter, because that's going to show us what the road conditions look like and what we should prioritize for improvements. So just a couple of things I thought I would pass out. So first of all, importantly, what is in the vision and goals section right now? I highlighted number 8. I mean, the first line, obviously, you kind of can't disagree with. Of course, we want safe and adequate access, but there's a couple of things in here that we pulled out that I'm throwing out. Are these still priorities? Such as on-demand service for seniors. So if that's something that is still a priority, then obviously that's something that we'll look at. Again, that question mark. The other interesting thing, though, is that, looking at the growth potential for the airport access road, I'll come back to what I think is interesting about that and why. And then again, the Northern Bridge crossing. And is this something that, we're really looking to plan for or not? So those are just things that I'm throwing out there as questions. We don't have to maybe decide those now, but I think it'd be good to get some sense of them. Going on to the next page, you've got transportation goals. Again, this is from the vision section. These were what were adopted in 2002. So these are things that we may want to revisit. We may not. I mean, I've read through these. These seem pretty reasonable. I think most likely the kinds of things that we would probably want to continue, but nevertheless, we should just give that some thought. unless we decide to change them, I think it'd be fair to say that these will be the guiding principles that we use. But maybe we do want to alter these. Maybe there's some new things that we want to think about and look at. And on your third page, I just thought I would throw out, just for information, some recent traffic counts and trends. And, I found these interesting. Clearly, the biggest difference between the last time the transportation chapter was adopted and now is exit 13, the airport access road. It's definitely led to a significant change, I think, in traffic patterns. So just kind of going down this list, there's been an overall trend for traffic counts on most roads, and this is not unique to Litchfield. This is true, I think, throughout the region, to either be flat or to drop. So you can see that 3A at the town line, Hudson Town Line has dropped. 3A, they say, what we're saying is north of Page Road. That's dropped again, somewhat significantly. But then notice 3A at the Manchester City line, that's jumped fairly significantly, 3%. Well, that's no surprise. That's almost certainly, access road impact. 102 is kind of intervening in here, slight drops. Again, though, not surprisingly, you see pretty heavy traffic volume on 102. Also note, you see pretty significant traffic volume at the Manchester City line. And then again, you're seeing drops, but then notice Albuquerque north of Hillcrest, 10% increase. That's pretty dramatic. And I think, again, that's pretty clearly also related to the access roads.
Everybody going up and then cutting on.
Yep.
Exactly right. So that's,
Continental uses that.
Yeah.
Everybody uses that.
I mean, that's what I got to think it is. And then beyond that, as you get south of that on 3A, your traffic drops off. So it's interesting because it's really, Albuquerque is taking on a very significant function, maybe more so than I thought it would. But nevertheless, I mean, more significantly than 3A is. Look at the and this, I even wonder, why is it so exact? But notice Albuquerque north of Hillcrest and 3A north of Page, they're exactly the same count.
Yep.
So that's, to me, I found that pretty interesting. I don't know what or if that suggests there's any issues or challenges. When I go down Albuquerque, of course, usually that's off hour. I don't see congestion issues. I see certainly steady traffic.
I live on Albuquerque.
So you see
Slightly different.
They're not doing 35. And you're saying it's a third of what's on 3A. That's a lot of traffic coming
it's
through
a lot of
neighborhood.
traffic.
It's a neighborhood. It's
I think when 3A was
not a highway of 3A,
right. So I hate to admit that I remember when Albuquerque was in the planning stages and just beginning implemented. But the thought was that Albuquerque would function as a collector with neighborhood streets off of it, not as an arterial. And I think when you're seeing, the assumption was that 3A would remain the dominant road, and that's not the case for most of its length.
It's turning into a main drag.
It's turning into the main arterial. So what that means, and my assumption is that's something that we probably want to dive into a little more deeply. And I don't know if there's any interest or appetite in looking at, are there improvements or changes we may want to make to reflect that. Again, I don't know how much of a concern it is to the residents, but I've certainly noticed that speed is a factor. It's not insignificant. Other things, I think the pedestrian bicycle path is, seems to me to be pretty heavily used. There's a lot of activity on that. That's a great thing. Again, that's my bias. I think that's a really good thing. Are there any improvements or changes that need to be made there? Obviously, you've also got, you've got the high school on Albuquerque. So that's a significant generator also. So, I kind of throw that out there. I think we're at the point now of kind of issue spotting. And then what that allows us to do is start digging into data deeper. And, are there alternatives? Are there things that we should be looking at? Whether that's traffic calming, or should we look at I can't imagine we'd want to look at signals, but is that something that we would want to look at? Are there other areas where, we might want to consider some change or improvement? So again, throw it out there. And we don't have to make those decisions now, but we can kind of think about what are the things that we should be looking at more closely. To me, that's probably the most significant issue that I see jumping out there. A lot of the other issues that impact Litchfield are beyond the boundaries. They're a little bit more regional. I'm interested in taking a deeper dive into where people are going in terms of journey to work or travel. Because some of the most significant congestion spots in the general vicinity are certainly the Taylor Falls Bridge is probably the most significant. And so that's why I say I'm interested in where people are traveling and where they're going. And then again, looking at 102, we're seeing pretty heavy volumes on 102, although they haven't increased. That's an area that's pretty significant. And I don't know, but I expect we're going to see an uptick, in traffic on 102 because we're definitely seeing more development on 102. We're also seeing a lot more development in Londonderry, and to what extent that impacts Litchfield roads, I don't know, but I'd like to see I'm just showing you straight out counts, but we also have a traffic modeling that can show kind of what it looks like now and then what it looks like in the future. So I haven't dived into that yet, but I'll be interested to see what it looks like. And then the last thing you have in your packages is just a map. And this is an old map. This is the map that was included in the 2002 master plan. So obviously this will be updated with more recent streets and with the improvements that you see. You didn't even have a complete Albuquerque at that point, or as complete as now. And we may want to look at reclassification, as I noted, as to what's a collector and what's an arterial, because that's definitely changed.
Mhm.
You can even see in here, the lower portion of Albuquerque is shown as a minor collector. That's definitely not the case. And then we've got, major collector, major, and then the minor arterial. So again, those are all things that we'll probably look at again, look at the reclassification of all these streets. So that's what I got. Any thoughts, feelings?
Board have anything they want?
Things we should be focusing on? Obviously, the chapter will include a lot of information, which you would expect. A lot of it's going to be pretty standard.
It's really good, Jeff. Really good. A traffic signal at the end of page in 102, but I think that's Hudson.
That's Hudson,
At
yeah.
that point, yeah. Nothing we can do about that there. Huh?
Well, it's still something that could be looked at. I mean,
Because with the new Kalawa Way, that new complex there, it was already bad in the morning rush hour times. Trying to take a left onto 102. And
There's usually several accidents a year at that
I'm sure
intersection.
there is, but you usually got 15 something cars backed up there too.
Yep.
At certain points of the rush hour day.
we could look at that. That's I think that section is state jurisdiction, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, 102 would be state. It's
Right.
Hudson. I don't know if we can delve into that.
That's probably worth looking at.
And we'll probably see the north end increase a little bit more with LKQ's auto part distribution right there. That's right. Everyone will be going off to the flyover, but I'm sure it's going to tax that into the road.
So is there anything that, Jay, you'd like to, to start the process? What we can start by doing, right?
I think this is really it. It's do these, and again, we can talk about them in the future. It's not do or die now, but kind of are these, the goals out of the vision statement, are those really still the goals that should be driving us? And then I think identifying some of these issues clearly, I think getting a better understanding of what's happening on Albuquerque, I think is one, and looking at the reclassification of the roads. We'll look into the possibility of a signal at 102. So that's a matter of looking to the warrants. I think that's a good one to call out. Also, just kind of going back to the point in here, the concept of on-demand transit for seniors, if that's something that's still of interest, that's something that we could look into also, kind of what are the alternatives? And then also, are there any other areas where we should be looking at bike lanes or bicycle and pedestrian accommodations? Pretty good along Albuquerque.
Mhm.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's fine, or maybe there's other areas that we think we should be looking at. And so, that's a question, because if that's an interest, we could certainly look at it. Obviously, that's the residential spine.
Right.
Any other traffic related or transportation issues that are on people's minds?
Anything anybody can think of?
As I mentioned, we'll look at the road condition piece. We've also looking at the culverts, and that's kind of another area
Oh, yeah, that's right.
that's been on my brain
Yeah.
lately. So I'm going to see how we can. One of the issues out there is the increase. Overall, we've got projections for increased precipitation, but also in particular, an increase in significant storm events.
Mhm.
So there's some question, and I can't say specific to Litchfield, about whether or not we should be looking at sizing culverts larger to accommodate
Yeah.
more significant flow. And one of the things that increasingly in transportation planning we need to be looking at, and from federal highway, we now have to consider resiliency as one of the criterion when we're evaluating transportation projects, and that's something historically that's not something that we've done. And for Litchfield, the most significant hazard would be flooding, would be the potential for flooding, and what the impact of that could be on infrastructure. Obviously, there's certain areas of town where that's more prevalent, so that's probably something that we want to take a closer look at.
Yeah, we may want to tie that in with the road agents plan on how they're going through the roads, repaving them. They can look at culverts at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I know there's one up in Robin that's starting to fail that they're going to have to look at next.
That actually came up at the Heritage Commission's first meeting, is
Really?
one of the properties that was in front of us that had the swale. Some of the historic buildings might be falling victim to water be going into their properties as well, and also into the roads. So culverts and it's
Right.
may help.
It may help.
So it
Absolutely.
was just, they were just looking at it from the potential buildings in town, but in general, you sound like you want to plan.
I think it's something that we
Well, it
should,
sounds like transportation project level, but not the town level, but
but I think it's something we should be looking at. We should at least be identifying. We've got them all, or we'll have all of them identified. So it makes sense, I think, to be looking at that issue. And we know flooding, certainly water is an issue in a lot of areas. So I think makes sense for us to be looking to address that. As you guys know, the original Litchfield Center was moved when the river moved, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it can be pretty vulnerable in that side of town. So I'll definitely make a note to add. Okay, great. Are there any areas you think we should be looking at things like pedestrian bike, or not really?
I was making a joke about bringing the ferry back. That's what I was saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Very ambitious.
I have a brick on my desk that was made in Litchfield in the 18th century.
Wow,
It was dug out of a bank in Merrick
nice.
because they used to ferry him across at Reed's Ferry.
Mhm.
Okay. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, alternative modes of transportation, like maybe for, like busing or, having I don't know if it's a bus route or something, or maybe even I think we talked about one at some point about having like a place where people can get access to transportation, public transportation or whatever.
You could certainly look at some options.
Like public transportation out of Litchfield to Nashua and to Manchester.
Right, or, going outside of, or, even people, who may, not have, a limited ability to travel or being able to get access to
Doctors.
the resources and things of that nature, right?
Who pays the cost for these plug-in cars if you have these things? Maybe the town hall wants a few in the parking lot, but I don't know who pays for that. Who pays the electric bill?
chargers?
No, but who pays the electric bill when they charge it?
There's,
I mean, I
there's
don't know if
different
we want
types
to
of them.
visit
There's,
that. but-
there's some that the town could actually pay for themselves, and there's other ones that have credit card swipe. That you actually go up, you swipe your credit card, and based on how many
I
hours.
mean, we don't want that all over town, but maybe the town offices, I don't know.
Well, there's going to be money for that through the VW settlement. So there was some very significant millions that came to the state, and they are prioritizing public fleets. So municipal fleets and the state fleets, no surprise, are going to be the priority. But there could be some funding for that. That probably is something to think about, particularly if there's any improvements planned. At least even if you don't put in the charger, at least putting in the infrastructure, because the most expensive part is installing them, tearing up the ground and installing them. So that's actually really something to think about.
What are they called? Electric meters? What are those things called?
Electric vehicle charging station.
Electric.
So that's a good point to think about, and
And
whether
buses too
they
could be electric.
whether they should be anywhere else. That's a thought too.
I know some towns have, well, I don't know if it's Nashua or like a trolley system where they have a trolley that goes through town sometimes.
Charging.
Or something of that nature.
For now,
Yeah. Huh?
it's going away, but for now,
Okay, well,
I wasn't thinking like the electronic trolleys. I like that, but like some of the buses are.
A lot of them
Pretty
are
modern,
natural
right?
gas, some are electric now. They're changing a lot of them.
Again,
Some
I
are
don't-
some are
I'm asking-
biodiesel.
We just want one that
They-
moves.
they've got at least 3 different kinds right now operating in Nashua,
Yep.
depending on the funding stream. I think the most recent ones are hybrid, which makes sense because obviously the funding stream is going to drive kind of what you do. But the electrical charging is definitely something to think about and to look at alternative locations that would make sense. Basically, you're looking at places where people will keep the car parked for some significant period of time. So, Mel's Funway. Charge while
Real
you're-
size cars.
Right. But public facilities, that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Schools, here.
they also have things now with the bicycles you can rent. I've seen
Yeah,
that.
the
rent
blue bike,
bikes or
yeah.
whatever, and
Smart bikes.
smart bikes, is that
Yeah,
what they
right.
are? Yeah.
If I pass on to it, you can go from here to point B.
Right,
and so
yeah, and
forth.
then just drop it on.
Yeah. And there's 2 primary, methods of delivery now. The Manchester is docked, so the fixed dock versus Nashua, which is the dockless. Both of them, are not, I mean, it's a pretty similar technology. I guess it's a little bit different with the dockless, but
Is that the bikes?
yeah.
Okay.
So those are interesting.
You think we'd do that in Litchfield? It's too far apart. Right?
It's just an idea.
Mountain bikes for
I
the
don't-
woods, maybe.
Yeah.
Whether there'd be
People use them
sufficient
right now anyway.
demand for them to want to bring a service here, that's hard to say. But couldn't hurt to look.
It seems like with the dockless ones, like if there was demand, they would already be here. I think just because I think people just take them and you leave them wherever. That's sort of how it works with the dockless ones, right?
It is, and then so that's obviously why having some density of them is necessary, because then they have to go around and pick them all up, which of course they can locate them. But that's the question mark: is there enough demand? Just hearing a little bit about Nashua's experience is very, very early, but I mean, not surprisingly, the greatest demand is recreational. That's what you would expect. You're peaking on weekends. Mine Falls Park, biggest destination. They have a larger transit dependent, a much more significant transit dependent population, and those folks do appear to be using it for work. Those are probably people who they weren't driving before, so they were probably taking a bus before, or getting a ride with somebody before, or taking a taxi before. So, but whether it would work here, that's hard to say. But again, that'd probably be a recreational demand. We could see, it could make a difference. Could certainly look at it and see where has it happened in a more rural, suburban, setting. And we could look at other options too, shuttle options, if there's significant, if there's enough demand. And that's hard to say.
I'm kind of surprised there's already not something that comes up from like Hudson to like the airport area in Manchester,
There isn't. Yeah, there's nothing fixed route that does. Well, it's all in. Something will get me in trouble, but our fixed route bus systems in Nashua and Manchester are really designed to serve a transit dependent population. So they go places where their riders want to go. And when we've looked at, and we are right now, we're looking at a transit expansion study. But when riders are polled in Nashua, where do they want to go outside of Nashua? Number one is Walmart in Amherst, and I think number two is Walmart in Hudson. Those are the destinations, not so much the airport. So it's.
Walmart should start providing their own buses to go pick people up.
Yeah.
Right.
Mall would be one, like the mall in Manchester or something.
Amazon, they would.
Not for Nashua.
Certainly would. You better believe it.
Open the car door for you.
There is a bus that runs between Nashua and Manchester that goes up the Turnpike, and that limited. I think areas where we should be thinking about connections though are more of the van pool type vehicle. Things like to the park and rides. We've got a park and ride in Londonderry that's also served by Boston Express.
Yeah.
Is that something that would be desirable for people? And there's more and more employment around the airport. So is that of interest? Don't know the answer. But I think those are the kinds of things I'd be interested in. And maybe even in looking at some other technology-driven, on-demand types of transit. So there's a lot of stuff we could look at. That, what makes sense for people here? Where do they want to go? Where are they commuting to? But for a special need population, you don't have a transit-dependent population. But that said, there are certainly people who are mobility challenged who live in Litchfield who may benefit from some type of service, and that's different, and that's something to think about. So there's the Sahegan Valley service that is focused on elderly, disabled people who need to get to doctor's appointments, people who need to take shopping trips, and that's a subsidized service. Running in the 4 Sahegan Valley towns. So, there's a model like that potentially that it may be something to explore. We are looking at the transit expansion. So where does that go? How far does that go? And does that serve, can that serve Litchfield? That's something, we will be looking at. Because definitely Hudson is top on the really, when you're looking at transit expansion, it's really always been Merrimack, Hudson, and Amherst. Well, Milford has been, there was a pilot out to Milford for a while. Once again, though, big destination was the Walmart. And that was probably true for both directions. For the Milford people using it, I think that was more their interest also. Not the only one, but the number one. So yeah, those are all things we could look at.
What is the latest update on this, 10 or 15, 20-year plan for the circumferential highway that they're going to do around Hudson, maybe into Litchfield? There's like 20 different routes they've tried to decide on, and is it ever going to come to life, or is it dead in the water?
So there's two things.
It was in the Hudson Litchfield News about 2 weeks ago or something about, well, it's back to life again. So I don't know.
Oh, well, so there's two things. The state did purchase, I'll say half the right of way in Hudson. So that already exists. That it's a, really wide right of way. And obviously all undeveloped. So that already exists and it's already state owned. And that goes up to 111. And then they stopped purchasing, the balance of the right of way. There were some acquisitions in between, but that's all there. So there is a warrant article going forward now in Hudson to develop that lower section from 3A to 111 as a town project. It is in the 10-year plan as a town funded project. So there's a warrant article going forward now. And I know they've also put in a build grant to help cover the design. So if the town passes the warrant article, then they'll move forward in building it, not as originally envisioned, but actually like, much more like Albuquerque.
Yeah.
That's the vision.
A little piece to it.
2-lane, limited access road with at-grade intersections for all the major, roads along there. The original one was a, 4-lane highway that would have bridged all of those. So much lower impact environmentally, in every way. So whether that passes or not, that we don't know. That's a question mark. But that would be at its extent. There are certainly still folks out there who would like to see that northern section completed, but it's not funded anywhere. And so the likelihood of that, I think, is honestly pretty remote. And then the other piece of that, other key piece of that is the Northern Bridge. And that's something that's been talked about for a long time. That is in the 10-year or, in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan as an illustrative project. So that basically means it's there, it's a concept, but there's no funding for it.
Yeah, that's what you hear the most of. You hear the most of people wanting to get to the Everett Turnpike without having to go down Canal Street in Nashua to get to it.
Absolutely.
And still going to the airport exit, that's still a little too far north than people want to go. So they're still going to go clog up the Hudson Bridge again. It's just
Right.
something that's
I mean, there
right
was
next to Budweiser too. Exit 11 should be.
There was right away. So I say that's the other section. There's actually two options there. One is you do a northern bridge, but you stop at DW Highway in Merrimack.
Yeah.
And then people can go to exit 10, or they could go down to Nashville. And then the original concept was you went straight through to the turnpike at a new exit 9. And that was laid out. And the right of way for a long time was reserved in Merrimack. But then when it was pulled out of the 10-year plan and it was clear there was no funding, that right of way is not reserved any longer. And that's one of the, if not the most sensitive environmentally. And that's the reason why the project never moved forward, as it was not going to get through the environmental review process. The impacts were pretty significant and the concern around them was even more significant. And when you're looking at that area, in Merrimack, you're in close proximity to the Pennachuck Pond system and all the wetlands around it. So you're impacting wetlands that have a direct relationship to public water supply that elevates it all even more. Realistically,
Oh, yeah.
I don't ever see it happen.
Yeah. You increase your traffic on 3A
Right.
as well.
Oh yeah, and if you stop it at DW, obviously that has very significant impact on that stretch of DW. So that would be a problem. I will say though, we did model the partial circumferential, what they're calling Hudson Boulevard from 111 to the Sagamore Bridge. That actually significantly reduces traffic at the Taylor Falls Bridge because of what the model shows is that a lot of people who are coming from the east and who are now taking the Taylor Falls Bridge to get to the turnpike would drop down. They would simply get off on the Hudson Boulevard connecting right to the Sagamore Bridge because most of those folks are southbound. So Although that wasn't intuitive to me until I saw it, the model, it really does make a difference. That's the biggest net
Oh,
benefit
anything will help.
for the region that you'll see is a drop in that traffic and congestion. And for what it's worth, for Hudson local roads in that vicinity, they also see a significant drop because you've got all kinds of people fighting their way through back roads.
Hudson's, those two bridges they're bursting. They're busting.
They-
at the
they
seams
are.
right now.
So-
Every afternoon.
They really are, and so is 3A in South Hudson. Lowell Road is. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no
Lowell Road is
good way.
horrible all the way.
Horrible. It really is. Because there's no
Right.
good way if you're coming from those eastern communities. If that's where you want to go, from Pelham, from Wyndham, from Londonderry, there's no good option, and that impacts Litchfield.
Mhm.
And anybody who's going that way every morning will, I'm sure can attest to that.
Yeah.
And that's not going to get better without some improvement. That's not going to get better.
But it sounds like everything you just mentioned is pretty much on hold, other than if Hudson wants to build that, pseudo Albuquerque road.
Well,
But they're
right.
kind of trying to go
Right.
faster than the state.
Help a little. That'll help Lowell
That'll
Road a
help
little
some
bit.
of them.
I think that would help. I think that's significant. And we are intending to do a corridor study of that whole Taylor Falls Bridge, 111, that whole section, because that needs help. There is a plan to replace the Taylor Falls Bridge.
Way to send everybody during that.
Unfortunately, I think the work that's being contemplated right now is an in-kind replacement, not an expansion. And I think we should really rethink that, because it's not just a issue of age and condition, it's an issue of capacity. And so that's something that should be thought of. I hope will be thought about. But we really do have to look at that whole area and what can we do to improve things. There are some things that can help in traffic. Capacity is capacity. But like, for example, using, smart technology to adjust traffic lights in real time based on actual flow. That's a real thing. Hudson's actually got that capacity. They've got the infrastructure, I should say, to have that capacity. That would be really interesting to see. Of course, intersections like that are so challenged. There's almost, you help this out a little bit, you make that worse. It's very hard to do something like what you've got happening right before the bridge. But nevertheless, those are some things that can help. But yeah, there's certain places where we just need to make an improvement, where we need to improve capacity.
Am I misreading this, or is everything pretty much no funding? There's no really not funding for a lot of this, right?
Right now, that's right. That's right.
I did speak with our Board of Selectmen chairman, and I will be voting to leave it on the list in the fiscally constrained column, just so everybody knows. And that's the position Litchfield's taken for
Right.
40 years.
Can't hurt. Yeah.
So just so you know.
It can't hurt to keep it in there. It's
That's
still
true.
in there. And who knows what could change, funding wise down the road. Or maybe we'll come up with more interesting ways to fund things. You never know. It's all right. These are all things that we can, that we'll take a look at. And then, my plan would be to, before I bring back a draft, I'll probably just bring back some information and some additional data that we can look at, and maybe some alternatives on some of these issues. We can review those, comment on those, and then work it into a draft.
Maybe see also what other, maybe communities that are, or maybe similar to Litchfield, have done with their transportation.
Yep,
as a
absolutely.
model,
Yeah.
just to get an idea. That might be helpful. I know we usually do that. We've done that in the past. where
Definitely.
We look at
Definitely take a look at that.
the communities, see what they've done. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay. So that's master plan update. and forgive me, it's been a while. Were we supposed to have are we supposed to have public input on the community design chapter, or was that for another meeting?
Public hearing, but it's
Public
not,
hearing.
not at this meeting.
Not at this meeting, okay. I
But it
just
was
wanted
for
to
the
make sure.
first.
It was for the, okay. Oh, okay.
No, it was for the 8th.
Oh,
But we-
okay.
That's why I didn't know if she published it yet in the paper.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but I don't know if she did it.
I'll send her a note tomorrow.
Okay. Committee reports. Anybody have any reports from the committees? Conservation met this month, the first Thursday of the month. And I know at that meeting, there was a proposal brought forward. It was actually a conceptual or a design for possibly building a gas station in Litchfield. But I don't know if we're going to be seeing that down the road as a site plan or whatever. But this would be on 3A. We know where the Morris Falls is, right next door to Morris Falls. There's that open land. It's going to be there. The applicant had, I say applicant, the prospective applicant came before the Conservation Commission because they wanted to find out if the Conservation Commission would, say yay or nay to it. So, but it was a conceptual design. It wasn't anything official. But I'm just giving you a heads up that we may see something, and maybe that's something to, I don't know. As we're talking about transportation and stuff, it may tie in. I don't know.
Where is Moore's Falls? Is that in a residential
The
section?
conservation area.
Where's that?
You know where the horse stables are on 3A?
Yeah.
Right after that, that little kiosk you see?
Yes.
That's Morse Falls
Oh, so
That's
that is
conservation
business
land.
and it's both. Okay.
for the town.
So north of that or south of that are they thinking of? Because north of that's power lines, right?
Right, so it would be south
Just south of it.
of Morse. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know where that White House is across the street? Yep, it's right there. Good.
So that'd be aquifer.
Yeah, that is one of the issues, I think. But as I said, we'll see. So that's all I have to report about Committee for Conservation. I haven't heard anything from the Lower Merrimack River. I know there's a watershed conference coming up for the state, and that's going to be in play. But we haven't had any meetings officially because we haven't really had any projects. So
I did go to the conference in Newburyport.
oh, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
How was
last week.
How was it?
It was pretty good. It was
Yeah.
fairly well attended, but not surprisingly, it was in Newburyport, so it was really downriver
Yeah.
issues that dominated it.
Right.
But it was still, it was interesting.
So that, other than that, that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah. I have an RPC meeting tomorrow night for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. I told you I will vote yes to, as is, to keep it on the plan. Heritage Commission, we had our first meeting and we are setting up our bylaws to be how we said it was going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not informational only, but advisory only.
Advisory.
So we're everybody on that team wants to make sure that how we did that zoning ordinance, it is advisory only. So we're doing that. We just started that process.
I take it we don't have minutes to approve because, or do we? I don't know.
She had two there.
We may have. Oh, actually, I think we do. She did put them. I have the November 20th and
Looks like they're both there.
yeah, looks like they're both there. And December 4th.
Well, actually, can I bring something up based on this minutes? Mel's just closed, the restaurant.
Yes.
Does that impact our?
Really?
Well, there was a, I
Like
don't
closed for
I
good or
don't know if
closed
it was
for
a
the
medical
winter?
issue or something. I'm not 100% sure.
It's
but-
closed and potentially opening again in February.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that impacted our parking lot.
Their business can't be too good
I
in
was
the
look-
winter time.
Hmm?
I can't imagine the business is good at the restaurant in the winter.
I think it was a medical thing. I'm not sure. I thought that's what I saw on Facebook, but I don't know if that's true. But I was looking at this Mel's, minutes, and I just triggered my thought on. Sorry about that.
Well, I mean, I'll let everybody take an opportunity if
Yeah.
you have the minutes to review them.
Sorry, the clickers.
So if, if there's, if everyone thinks they're, look good, I mean, I could entertain a motion to approve both sets, both sets of minutes, the November 20th and December 4th. So moved.
I do have one question
Discussion.
on December 4th, though. I think we all made the error of January 8th to have that community design meeting, but that is what did happen. Yeah, so
Right.
it is correct here.
Okay.
We just shouldn't have done that date. So we have is the motion?
Well,
Or are we-
Yeah, I mean, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Steve
He made a motion, so I need a second. That's basically. Okay, do I have discussion? All right, all those in favor of signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained. Motion carries 5-0-0. Okay. Any other business before the board this evening? Anybody have anything?
I just have a
Yes.
question on how we just voted. Stephen Weber, was he at both of the meetings? I don't think he was at the December 4th meeting. Can we have to do them
I
separate?
think he can,
As long as I can read them.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah,
All right,
he's-
I'm just looking at the names and I just want to make sure.
No, yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have nothing. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I apologize. No, one quick thing. I did send out an email to Tyler Perrin. I believe he's going to be resigning from the board. He sent me back an email saying he was going to send a letter in to Joan about his resignation from the planning board and from the NRPC. And I know Kate had an interest in being on the commission we talked about. I know Tony was interested in becoming a member, a full-time member, I believe. So I think in order to get that process going, obviously I haven't heard from Joan or anything about any letters coming in or anything like that. So I might wait on it just until I find out a little more whether we can get the process rolling, because I think we have to do a motion to get, I believe, to approve or recommend that Tony be made a full member and Kate, I believe, to be named to be put forward to the Board of Selectmen for the commission seat. Do we need a motion for that?
You don't have to. It's the selectman's prerogative, but you certainly could make a motion to recommend.
Okay. I don't know why I was thinking of that. I thought in the past we had always voted at other meetings at that, but I may be. Wrong.
It's certainly it's a good thing to do. It's not mandatory. The selectmen could, on their own initiative,
Okay.
appoint whomever they wish.
Well, I think, we'll wait till Kate gets back, just in fairness. And obviously,
So Dennis is, yeah.
yes, I was just about to say, we are losing a valuable member. Dennis, this is his last official meeting here in Litchfield for the planning board. So Dennis, it's been a pleasure to work with you and
Yeah,
have
same
you
here.
on board, and we wish you all the best
Thank you.
in your future endeavors, going to Hollis. And maybe that'll motivate you to become a member of the Hollis Planning Board. I don't know.
See what it takes.
Because you have a
Yeah.
your
Right,
curriculum vitae. You can set it out there. You've been to
They already have 3 alternates and a full board. So it's going to be tough to squeeze on that.
Good. But as I said, in all seriousness, we will miss you, and it's been a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, it's been
on
great.
board,
Great work.
and,
You guys are great to work with here too.
yes.
Fantastic.
okay. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
So you can have 2 vacancies.
So we're going to have 2 vacancies. So I think we're going to have to start hitting the bandwagon.
Actually, 3, don't we?
We have
With
3.
Joe too.
We have 3 vacancies.
Oh, that's right.
And we need a
Joe-
clerk.
Joe Blanchett.
We're gonna need a clerk at some point.
We're going to have Dennis. Who else am I missing?
Tyler?
Oh, and Tyler. Yeah. So 3. So I guess we're going to have to hit the band.
And assign a clerk.
Yeah, exactly. Although I think with the new year coming up, I think we do. Do we usually do
Maybe.
election of officers? Oh no, our terms have to come up, right?
Yeah.
Before we do that, I'm sorry.
That's how they rope you in another 3 years, right?
Yeah.
They change your title. It's another 3 years. Right?
Okay. So I think maybe we can get the word out. If anyone's interested in becoming a planning board member, I can reach out to Joan, or reach out to us here, and hopefully we can find some new people, new blood before they go forward, and I think we'll be good. So, anybody? Does everybody think good? Okay. I have nothing else this evening. If nobody else has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
A second.
Second, we have a motion. I have a second. Do I have discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained. Motion carries 5-0-0. Dennis, good luck. Thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening. Good night. And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.